This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com and constructionbusinessaccelerator.com. My name is Todd DeWalt, and it's my job to help you eliminate chaos, maximize revenue. On today's episode, you're going to hear my interview with my good friend and longtime client, Thomas Andrews from Oklahoma. And here's what you're going to hear about. You're going to hear the story about how he and I ended up in a bar in Quebec with me trying to place a strange order to a bartender that speaks French primarily. You're also going to learn about what Thomas means when he says to do as much as you can with as little as possible. You'll hear about his story, how he's dealt with adversity, and how adversity has really helped shape who he is today. You'll find out what happens when you're committed. He's got an interesting principle that he's learned about what happens when you're committed. You're going to want to listen to that. You'll hear about what happens when you find your why. What happens when you find your why? And then you'll hear about some of his pretty remarkable results that he's seen in his business in the last few months here in 2019. So this is going to be good. You're going to enjoy this. You're going to get a lot out of it. A couple of things I want to get in your hands, make sure you know about. First, one of the things that Thomas and I talk a lot about is the advance. And this is a live event that's coming up October 17th and 18th in Lexington, Kentucky. You can get all the details at constructionbusinessaccelerator.com/advance. And here's what you're going to get. All right. If all you get is one thing out of the advance, then here's one thing. This is what everybody needs to hear about. You're going to learn how to sell more work at higher margins. You're going to learn how to overcome and prevent the price objection. You're going to learn how you can avoid having to bid on work. You're going to learn how to build relationships and who you need to build relationships with. You're going to learn strategies for building relationships with people that will send you a steady stream of work. Let me read you a testimonial that Ryan Hammers sent me after he attended the last advance. Here's what he said, quote, "Todd's teachings on leadership are profound. Most believe that leaders are born, but with the exercises he shares, it proves it not to be true. Since the advance, we have started to look inward and upgrade our current employees' leadership skills rather than to constantly have to find new leaders and skilled labor. The advance is packed full of great ideas that will save you hundreds of working hours, tons of money. 2 ideas alone have saved me 6 hours this week alone, not to mention the other 3 sales reps we have." Listen to this. "Before coming to the event, I thought I needed 2 more sales reps. After leaving, I realized I didn't, and that our office was just asking the wrong questions. I've since trained my staff on the right questions to ask to make sure our clients are more qualified and the work more profitable." Those are the results Ryan got after like 3 days. 3 days after he attended the advance. So in addition to all of that about selling, you're going to learn how to systematize your business. You're going to learn how to lead your team to higher profitability, and you're going to learn how to get out of your own way and stop screwing yourself over. So go to constructionbusinessaccelerator.com/advance. Check it out. If there are seats still available, you need to go there, but registration is going to close October 13th, 2019. All right. So if you can't remember any of that stuff and you're interested in the advance, send me a text. All right. 859-667-2015. And I'll send you the links. I want to get you there. This is the absolute best thing I can do for you if you own a construction business or if you're planning to start a construction business. And I'm offering a 10x return on your investment guarantee. So go to constructionbusinessaccelerator.com/advance to get all of those details. And I hope to see you in Lexington for a couple of days, October 17th and 18th. All right, enough about that. Let's get to the interview with my buddy, Thomas Andrews. All right, Thomas Andrews. Glad to have you on the podcast. How's it going today?
Going well.
So we're gonna cover a lot of ground, hit on some good stuff. I'm sure I've been looking forward to this one, but let's start with this one. What is one thing that you believe about business that some people would think is unconventional, maybe even a little crazy.
Unconventional. Well, I don't know if this is necessarily unconventional, but in in the circles that I run with or people that you visit with all the time, you hear, you've got to have a positive attitude. You've got to really look out. You've got to surround yourself with positive people. You've got to be an optimist all the time. And then you hear other people that are just, you got to expect the worst and or expect the best and plan for the worst kind of thing. And so, but man, I really have the different view on a lot of things on this of Admiral Stockstill was asked when he was a POW. You've probably used this illustration before, but he just talks about the people that survived the camp that he was in, and the people that were optimists said, man, Thanksgiving hits, we're getting out of here. Christmas hits, we're getting out of here. Easter hits, we're getting out of here. Summer hits, and we're getting out of here. And those people eventually lost so much hope. They died for, not being able to face the reality. And so rather than being negative and thinking we're going to die here, rather than being so optimistic thinking we're going to get out of here soon, it's, to me, it's a little bit, unorthodox to kind of face the brutal reality of the situation you're in, but at the same time believe that no matter what happens, we're going to get through this. We're going to figure it out, and we're going to get better through all of it. I don't know that that's necessarily unorthodox. Like I said a couple of times, I'm not going to say everything that I believe. I won't ever say anything that I do believe, that I don't believe, but we might get into some of these more unconventional things a little further down the road if you want to.
I have a feeling we'll meander into some unconventional stuff before this is over with. But yeah, that's good advice. There are some people out there that it's all sunshine and rainbows, and it's just not sustainable. It's going to suck at times. It is just absolutely going to suck at times. And there will be good days, but like Stockdale said, he said something like, you have to be able to face the harsh reality of your present conditions or something like that, but have optimism that you're going to get through it. And yeah, the pessimists, nobody wants to be around the pessimists who have a keen ability to find the negative in every situation, and the people that are just eternal optimists, they're just not going to make it. I actually had a business partner who was like that, and it was almost delusional.
Yeah, nobody wants to be around them either, because
Right.
Every time you're trying to solve a problem, the they're like, oh, we'll figure it out. We'll make it work. It'll turn out well in the end. No, it won't necessarily.
Yeah. It's like, I appreciate your optimism. Actually, I don't appreciate your optimism. Yeah. Initially, I appreciate your optimism, but it's probably going to be a lot worse than any of us think. But it's like, it's going to suck, but we're going to get through it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's probably a good mission statement. How's this project going to go? Well, it's going to suck.
It's going to suck, but we'll get through it.
We're going to get through it. And we'll do another one. Yeah. All right.
Sure.
So let's talk about your business. Just give the folks listening an idea of where you're at, what kind of work you do, and then we can kind of go from there.
I'm smack dab south of Oklahoma, right in between Oklahoma City and Dallas, Texas. And so, right in between there. So, right in southern Oklahoma, and we work all over the state. Was in Tulsa this morning. We've got a project going up there that will be starting off pretty soon. We do really custom electrical, residential and commercial. We've got a lot of casinos in the area, and so there's a ton of restaurant remodels that we do that kind of specialize on the commercial side of things. And then houses, it's really almost the same thing for us as far as just dealing with the customer one-on-one and the general contractor, and just rather than we do have some contracts with spec homes and things like that, but our niche is really the custom commercial and custom homes. We've been doing it for I've been 2000 2006. Yeah, 2006. I incorporated and started Current Electric, and been doing it ever since.
And how did you get started in the business? What were you doing before you started your business, and just talk about how that all came to be?
So I went to college to be an electrical contractor. My dad was in business his whole life, but never construction. It was always banking business or running a grocery store or something like that. But he's always in business. And honestly, watching him work the hours he worked, I never wanted to own a business. I always wanted to make somebody else a bunch of money and take vacations and actually go to the lake on the weekends and enjoy myself. But I went to college and majored in electrical construction in '98, graduated in 2000, and that's took a job with a couple of contractors, and had a cousin that was an electrical engineer but had a contractor's license, had people calling him wanting him to do stuff all the time. And when I got my journeyman's license, he said, hey, come to work, handle all this stuff. So in 2004, I kind of took over his day-to-day stuff and running everything. And then in 2006, I got my master electrician's contractor's license. And he said, man, just take it over. You've been running it for the last 2 years, so just take off with it. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where we've been going with it.
Gotcha. And then what was 2008, 9, 10 like for you?
Oh,
do we even want to talk about that?
No. Not without a good stiff drink. 2008, man, I had 3 guys at the time. I didn't have a ton going, but man, all of my eggs were in the residential house market, and it just came to a halt. We went from doing everything, all that we could, to nothing. I was taking jobs for, to pay payroll, and then, man, 2009 or so, I got real crazy and thought, well, the residential market's not working. Let's go into commercial. And so I hired about 15 guys and took off, and a bunch of debt later, I realized that wasn't really the best thing for me either. So we regrouped, and but we're still making it. So yeah, 2008, 9, 10, 11, man, it was I don't know what it cost to get a doctorate from Yale or Harvard or anything, but I paid for a really good doctorates in adversity.
That's a really positive way to look at it. Yeah.
So I've got a couple of friends that are attorneys now, and they talk about their debt issues and for college and what all it cost them. Got a good friend that actually went into the military after he became a lawyer. And instead of letting the military pay for his college, he paid for his college, then joined the military. And so, he's got a ton of debt that he deals with from just college expenses. So, and that's the way I look at it, just a learning experience and chalk it up. And man, the only definite thing that is written down and can't be changed is the past. Our future hasn't been written. It's just our past. It's over. It's written. It's done. It's in the books. And man, it's about rewriting the future. So.
Yeah, that's true. Not a whole lot of sense dwelling on the past. And I know I've certainly been guilty of that, especially when somebody screws you over or you make a big mistake. It's pretty easy to sit there and dwell on the past, but not necessarily that helpful. So you mentioned adversity. How has adversity turned out to be a good thing for you?
How long is this podcast? Oh man, so just to get some idea, I was looking at, in 2011, my business made about, and it's all relative, numbers are all relative, but to businesses and things like that. But as an electrical contractor, I did about $1.5 million, and I was in debt $350,000.
Mm.
And if everything came in, I still owed about 250 to 300,000. And I had jobs that I had $30,000 worth of a draw left on it, and it was going to cost me about $80,000 to finish the job. And I remember those days and that was 2011. And I remember those days of walking onto those job sites and just, I remember getting a check for $25,000 on a job, and I went to the bank and I had this moment of, I'm going to cash this check, put the $25,000 in my pocket. I'm going to drop this cell phone in the trash can on the way out of the bank, and I'm going to drive south as fast as I can. And, people joke about stuff like that, but that was like a pivot point for me. I really was going to do that. It was a really, really difficult season, and I hated, I hated everything. And so, man, I had to like regroup, and I decided at that moment, I was like, I'm going to have to make this. I'm not going to do that. And so through that, there wasn't any one decision. There wasn't any one thing that made just this huge difference. But I decided to go back to what I knew, and it was residential. And I hear a lot of people talk about how awful residential is and how bad it is, and I think it's just it's what you do, what you get. If you're desperate enough, you'll make anything work. And so in 2000, it was early 2012, I got a contract with a big residential builder, and it caught the attention actually of a business guy. And he came in, and we actually had the discussion about him buying my business out. And then when he saw all the debt I had, he laughed at me and told me it was insane that that he had even considered it, because he had a lot of faith in me, but he was like, this is insane. There's no way that I can come out ahead by getting involved with this. And so there was a few other guys in the room. He had some business partners, and he ran them all out of the room, and him and I just sat there and we talked. And he gave me, he's like, what do you want to do? He said, you can file bankruptcy or you can climb out of this thing. What do you want to do? And I don't know why he wanted to help me, but he did. And he gave me, I don't know, of all the things we talked about for that hour, he's just, one thing was do as much as you can with as little as possible. And it's just such a simple thing. And he said, do you want to file bankruptcy? And I said, no, I really don't. I don't want to. Nothing against anybody that ever has. And it may be the option for a lot of people, but it just wasn't something I felt like I needed to do. And he said, I wouldn't either. He said, this is what you should do. And we created a game plan that day. And I haven't talked to that guy since that day. And I actually found a pen of his. I thought about calling him up and visiting with him not too long ago. But I laid off my number one guy. I changed my culture, and he started his own business, took every journeyman that I had, every crew leader that I had, they went and started a new business. I was struggling to make payroll, and they all knew it. They were scared to death that we were going to close shop, so they all bailed on me. And I just started all over again and developed it's looking back, I have no idea how I did it. I don't know how I'm here really today, except for the fact that I was never too optimistic. I faced the brutal facts of my reality, And I called banks. I called my banker. I called my vendors, and I never ran from any of them. And just from just sheer working hard and doing the right thing throughout the process and being honest about my situation with the people that I was involved with, man, it just slowly turned around. I didn't get in that position overnight. I didn't get in an awful, financial situation in one day. So I didn't get out of it in one day. Still kind of paying for it, but nothing like what it was then. And so through all of that, man, when you make it through something like that, you're like, man, what else? I mean, you can face your bank shutting you down, and face your vendor shutting you down, and you got and you can face losing everybody that you've poured into for 10 years all of a sudden, and then they're competing against you in the same market. Man, if you can survive that, then, man, I mean, what else is there? I went skydiving for my 40th birthday last weekend, and man, after you jump out of a plane, I mean, what else really is there? What other fears are there? So I mean, you just, after all those struggles and everything, it's like, man, I just want other people to know, man, as bad as it gets, it doesn't have to stay that way. Mm-hmm. And man, it hasn't been easy. And but facing the reality, no matter how harsh it is the first step, for sure.
Yeah, and there's a lot to be said for once you face the worst case scenario for a business owner, which is for you folks listening who've never gone through potential bankruptcy, being shut down, losing all your people, facing the possibility of having to shut down this business that you've worked on for so many years. Once you look at that in the face, and that is a real possibility, and then you walk through all that, what else is there really to be scared of? You realize, we'll just make it through. It's, fear kind of loses all its power once you stare at it in the face for months, weeks, years, and you get up in the morning, you're like, oh shit, you're still here. And eventually you just walk through it. It doesn't go away, but you just kind of walk through it. So good advice. So let's talk about fear a little bit. How does fear show up for you, and how do you deal with it?
Man, it's just today, just dealing with, every time, and we're just such experiential creatures. And so, I'm back up to, I have about 12 guys now, and I've got my structure is a lot the same as what it was back then, 7, 8, 9 years ago. And, I've got a guy that I'm having to trust him. I'm having to rely on him to handle some things. And, he's bidding job. He's bidding a job today. It's about a $250,000 job. And, the last time I was bidding $250,000 jobs, it wasn't turning out all that great. Mm. And so, being able to, the fear or experience or resistance or the enemy or whatever you want to call it, it just pops up, and those voices in your head, those demons that you fight every day, are just reminding you, remember the last time you tried this, remember the last time you did this. And so they're just the narrative and the story of who you've been. It's just like history is going to repeat itself, just creeps up. And so to battle against that, and that's honestly, that was, almost a year ago, I guess, is when I kind of hired you, so to speak, to come in and, help me out with those blinders and help me out with those, because the reality was a little bit different. I mean, it's totally different people. It's totally different situation. I've obviously learned a lot from the mistakes and from the past and everything. And so dealing with those fears, having people in your blind spots that can, when you're spazzing out somewhat, they can kind of slap you around and get your attention. Hey, this isn't, this doesn't even make sense what you're talking about. And so most of the time our fears and the things, we isolate ourselves and we keep ourselves thinking we're the only ones that are struggling. We're the only ones that feel this way. We're the only ones. We look at other contractors and they're driving big fancy trucks and going on 3-week vacations and buying lake houses and doing all the stuff that you wish you could do. And you're thinking, what am I doing wrong? And you think I'm the only one that's having a hard time. And the reality of it is just, everybody's having a hard time. And, and so when you have somebody that, a coach, somebody in your life that can kind of, stop you in your tracks and get you to realize the reality of what's actually going on and talk you through it. Like I joked with you the other day, I really don't even know why I pay you to be my coach. All I've got to do is write an email. And when I type it out loud and I read it back to myself, I think, you're an idiot. Why are you struggling with this? And then I push delete and I go on throughout my day because I know what you're going to say. And, but just having that person in your back pocket, I'm not complaining that do not do this. If anybody has employees that you talk to about don't talk to them about your business, about what's going on. Be transparent, communicate to them. But man, there's just so much stuff that you can't put back in that bottle after you've opened it up, and you give them your fears, and then the next thing you know, they're working out of fear, and that's one of the worst things. And so I've been guilty of that. I get really close to the people around me that work, and I trust them with so much. I think I can trust them with some, details. And sometimes it's not necessarily that you can't trust them. It's just, they don't need that burden. They don't need that worry. They don't need that concern.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to talk about relationships and how we ended up in Canada in a few minutes, but we started working together, I think in November. Yeah. So this is October. So it's been almost a year ago. Describe what was going on with you, kind of where your head was, what was going on when we talked in November of 2018.
Oh man. Here's the deal is I'm really big on self-evaluation, and man, I was just at such a bad place, man. I hated construction. I really hated the job. I hated everything to do with it. And after going through everything and kind of somewhat surviving, I was at a point where I was like, okay, I'm to a point now where I didn't have a choice, but to stay in the business and make it work. Now it's like, man, I've got a choice. I could go get me a decent job and I could continue to pay off these debts and everything would be fine. I could just go to work for somebody else. And start looking at other jobs and looking at other things and those struggles of, kind of having one foot out and one foot in. And it's extremely painful when you're doing that because there's no commitment. And, man, I had just had a really hard time of like, I am not cut out for this. I'm too soft-hearted. I see these cutthroat general contractors that they're not, friends of mine that, they're not afraid to take advantage of any opportunity they can. I just couldn't do it. And I just had this mindset and this narrative that construction was just, there's no way to make money in it. There's no way to do the right thing without taking advantage of all the people around you. I'd see these guys come in and they'd rip their employees' heads off and they were making money. And I thought, I can't do that. If that's what it takes, I can't do that. And I had an employee that I was really kind of frustrated with, because he'd been with me 7-8 years and still wouldn't take his test, wouldn't get a license. And so I asked him if this was what he wanted to do. Are you committed to being an electrician? And he said, I'm as committed to this as you are. And that was like just a ball dropped of like, these guys are seeing me being halfway, not committed at all. They see me trying. And when, at that time I was trying to be a contractor. I was trying to be a husband, trying to be a dad. And I realized that you can try all you want, you're really not going to have much success when you are just trying. And when you actually commit to doing something, that's when the resources start to show up. And that's when, when you're committed to it, come hell or high water, then your guys are committed to it. And when you're not, they're not either. And I realized that, and I was like, you know what? Odds are I'm not going to take another job. Odds are I'm not going to do anything else. There's some things that there's some side passions or desires or things that I have, but I knew that wasn't a direction that I needed to go, that I didn't know what to do, but I knew, but I really didn't know what to do. And so I was like, you know what, I better commit to this. This is obviously a talent or a skill that I've worked. I'm not that bad at it. I've survived this much. So what else can I do? And so I had actually gone to a Michael Hyatt best year ever goal setting workshop. I love goals and setting them and trying just killing them if at all possible. And I thought, man, there's just so much stuff. His material, it's great, but it wasn't for construction. I thought, man, there's got to be a guy out there. There's got to be somebody out there for construction. And I just started Googling. I'm literally in line at the bank to deposit like $6,000 where my checking account probably was -10. And so I was just like, man, I'm so desperate. And I pulled, I just Googled and found your stuff. And man, it was like you were reading my mail about cash flow and overhead and just dealing with employees and customers and all the situations, all the fears and all the mindset stuff. And so that's where I was at when I signed up, and I was like, well, $100 for your online stuff. Let's give it a shot. And I was just to be honest with you, I was just so desperate that I was willing to any help I could get, for crying out loud.
But did you ever find anybody that was good at construction that could help you with that stuff?
Well, we're still the jury's still out. So I jump on board, and it really was, man. I really honestly didn't know anything. I'd never listened to your podcasts. I'd never listened to anything. And from the first conversation we had, I knew that there was just something that you fit. I mean, I just finished I was a big Tim Ferriss fan about a year ago, and that was the only podcast you listened to. At the time that you were, at the time. And so there was just a lot of different things that we connected on a lot of different levels. And I really didn't know what it was, just felt like it was the right thing to jump on board with you. And man, now, I mean, with everything that has kind of transpired over the last, it took about 3 to 6 months, for your stuff to start really coming to fruition, if you will. But man, it's really I think you've kind of figured me out a little bit on how to, and I've really figured out a lot about myself too, to be able to really make a big difference in what's going on.
It has definitely taken a while to figure you out, and I don't know that I have. I think I got a lot closer.
Yeah.
I figured out a lot about you in Florida when you came to the advance.
Yeah.
So what we're going to talk about, maybe we'll talk about Florida here in a few minutes and talk about Canada also. But so a year ago you were like looking for a job, thinking construction sucked. Fast forward to now, what's different now after you've done all this work over the last 9 months or so?
Man, everything, really and truly. I mean, yeah, everything. It's great to be able to face the reality of your given situation, but at the same time, man, having hope that it's not going to stay that way. And that's really, I mean, your right to left was the biggest, I don't know if game changer for me. You know, I tell people all the time, it's not one thing that makes this huge difference. It's everything, the compound effect. It's a little bit every single day, but the right to left gave me the, man, you know, just starting with the end in mind, nothing new, but just thinking about projects differently and having a way to show your guys what a win looks like, and seeing kind of where you're really at the end of the day or at the end of the job before the job ever gets started. And that was one, I could look back at all those mistakes, and it was because that's all I was doing was at the end of the job, hell, we're out of money and we still got $70,000 it's going to cost $70,000 to finish this. What happened? And, you know, when you start with the end in mind, you have a pretty good idea when things are going downhill pretty quickly. When you've got a certain amount of man hours to get a project accomplished and you're 50% of the way through at you know, or 20% of the way through, and you should be 50% of the way through, you know, it's a harsh reality, and you got to change something. But if you change it right then, you can make a difference on the end. And man, when I started looking at that, man, it just gave me a lot of hope. It gave me a lot of, like, I mean, I told you early on, circumstances, cash flow really didn't change all that much. I was still struggling with it. My guys were still the exact same guys, but my perception changed. Stephen Covey tells about a guy getting on a train and his kids are acting crazy, and people are thinking, what in the world, why doesn't this guy control his kids? They're insane. And finally somebody speaks up, and they're all highly annoyed by this guy not handling his kids. And he says, I'm sorry, we just came from the hospital. Their mom passed away, and I have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
And the paradigm shift, the perspective change, the situation, the kids were acting just as crazy. Nothing changed except for the perspective.
Yeah.
And that's what it was for me 9 months ago. Nothing changed except for my perspective. And the kids were still acting crazy, but I knew what was really going on. And so that gave me the ability, and that gave me hope to start changing things and start doing the right things and start, I knew I could do it. I just needed some sort of guidance, some sort of somebody that had been there and done it and believed in me to help me do it.
Cool. And it took a while for things to turn around, but are you seeing the results now?
Oh yeah. So man, last year last year at the end of the year, we averaged about $60,000 a month or something like that. Bigger month. We had like everywhere from a $30,000 a month to a $100,000 a month or something like that. And margins were about the same across the board. Nothing to brag about, paying off old debts and things like that. And cash flow, I mean, it was just super, super difficult. And so the first 4 or 5 months this year is actually worse. We probably was running about 30,000. And I know you guys, you've got a lot of listeners that have cold weather and Oklahoma, man, we work every day of the year. I mean, we don't have any winter, I mean, tornadoes hit in the evening, so they really don't shut us down all that much in the daytime. So, I mean, it just, so we, our years are pretty consistent. I mean, Christmas, it may be 60 degrees, or it could be, 16 with a wind chill of 30 below. You never can tell, but it just doesn't last but 2 or 3 days. So, I mean, we're able to work. So, January, February, usually, things are usually picking up by then, and they weren't. But man, all of a sudden in June, July, August, we all but doubled what we were doing. We set a goal. You made me set a goal of 150,000 a month, 450, and we did like 500, just a little over 500,000 July, August, and September. I just looked, and so with really great profit margins. It wasn't just expenses went up, yes, but profit margins went up even more. And honestly, I don't know what I did in those 3 months that changed anything. All I know is what I did to change the previous 6 months. I really felt like that really timing was probably pretty good, whether you knew that you were doing it on purpose or not. But it was a result of the previous 6-7 months that really kind of hit these last few months. And it's fall hitting doesn't seem to be slowing down.
Yeah. So let's talk about, all right, let me paint this picture. Here was the situation. There I was. That's most good stories start off. There I was in a little restaurant in a little town about an hour north of Montreal a few weeks ago. And I turn around and Thomas Andrews is there. And he says, Todd, see if they can make a duck fart. And I turn to the French-speaking bartender, and I'm trying to explain to her what a duck fart is. Which,
did you look it up on your phone to try to say it in French?
I did. It's actually, if you find yourself in a French-speaking bar and you want to order a duck fart.
This is legitimate information right here for listeners.
Every podcast probably has one golden nugget.
Yeah, this is it. This is it.
So listen carefully.
Don't check out here.
If you want to be able to order a duck fart from a French-speaking bartender, it is pâte de canard. Okay.
Pâte de canard. Yeah, and you've got to be specific. Do you know how to make a duck fart?
You don't want them to mess around. You need them to give a verbal confirmation. Yes, I can make a pâte de canard. So that's how you say it in French with a Kentucky accent. So explain how you and I, and my wife was there also, how we all ended up, and let me put another caveat to this picture. You were there and you officiated a wedding.
Yeah.
So after which we were ordering duck farts at the bar. So explain to the listeners how you ended up officiating a wedding for a couple in Canada that you had not met before April of this year.
We actually talked about this. Matt and Katiana and I visited, and we honestly don't know how it actually happened. We're really not sure. It was just. Are we going to get into the advance here in a minute, or do I need to?
We'll talk
or
about
do
that.
I need to? Do I plug it now or later? So
let's leave them in suspense for a few minutes.
Okay. All right. So we're in Florida, and we just got to talking, and they were peeling back some of the depth of my soul. And so anyway, we just got to talking, and my plane, there had been a bad storm in Dallas, and so my plane wasn't able to leave, and they were actually staying there for a few days, and they let me be the third wheel on their vacation, and we went out to eat, and we just stayed up having a few beers and just visiting, and they got to talking, and they said, hey, would you be willing to marry us? We're not married. And I was like, sure, why not?
So they
were like, seriously?
While you're in Florida?
They asked me. We hadn't known each other for 36 hours. And so they're like, we don't really have anybody. We don't have a pastor or a church that we go to that we really have anybody that we want to use. Would you be willing to do it? And I'm not a pastor or anything. I actually got ordained on the internet a few months ago so I could marry a friend's kids a few weeks ago. And so it was the second wedding I've ever officiated. And it turns out I couldn't legally marry them. And so that was kind of fun. They got legally married earlier in the day, but I think they had a lawyer that was at the wedding that was really upset because I didn't do all the legal Canadian things to legally marry them. And they kind of played it off. I don't know if they ever told them that this lawyer was really concerned that they weren't married. And so I think they kind of played it off and let them really believe it for a long time, whether they've told them now or not. But yeah, we got to talking, and it just relationships, man. It just that's just getting to know people, and it just happens everywhere I go. It's fun. And so we got to talking, and they asked me to marry them. And then they called me a few weeks later, and they're like, we're really serious. And I was like, no, you're not. I was like, so you know that you're in, Quebec, French speaking country, and do you know how bad of an accent I have? Like, it's not even normal for Oklahoma. It's pretty strong. And they were like, we love it. We want you to do it. And so yeah, it was so much fun, man. It was a blast. This Oklahoma boy that doesn't travel just a whole lot, landing in Quebec and everybody speaking French, and my excuse me, ma'am, that sounded more unusual to them than the French did to me. So no, it was so much fun.
So Florida, the event you're talking about was the Advance in Fort Myers, Florida in April 2019. So if you guys had not met before that, this was the second Advance that I've put on. And I think there were 15 or 20 people maybe that came to the event in Florida. And one of the things I heard from several people, I would like to think that the content was the best part, but I don't think it was. I think frankly, the best part was the relationships that the people developed. And that's how you guys, not only how you ended up in Quebec, but you guys are also friends now, and you talk on a regular basis, and you share struggles and wins. Let's talk about relationships. How valuable are those relationships with other construction business owners who understand what you're going through?
Oh man, I can't even. It is the key to everything. In all reality. So what has helped go back and what has helped my business is, you pushed me, you're like, hey, go pick up a new contractor. So I was like, all right, I'll pick up a new contractor. So I shoot an email to actually back up. I called the guy that I fired that went off and started another business without me, with all of my guys. And so I called him up, and I didn't burn that bridge. Yes, I had to let him go, but I kept that relationship open, and that was hard. It was hard to do. But I kept it open, and he had, with some of the contacts with actually this really successful business guy, had helped him start this business. Instead of buying me out, he helped him start from nothing. And so, but with that connection, through a guy that I'd let go, he had landed a contractor with that in Oklahoma City that pulled 1,200 1,200 permits last year in Oklahoma City alone, not counting the communities around there. And so probably the biggest builder in Oklahoma. And, and he was like, hey, here's his email, and I'll put in a good word. And so I shot this owner an email, and he called me on his way to he's on the advisory board of the OU construction department, and he gave me a call, and man, he started feeding me work. And just that, because I didn't burn that bridge. I mean, this guy cost me a lot of money and was right in the middle of everything. And the very guy that cost me, or I'm not going to, I'm ownership. Don't get me wrong on that. But the very guy that was in the middle of all those struggles, the very guy that has really, the connection with him is one of the biggest turnarounds in my business today. And so those relationships are just, man, you can't take them for granted. You never know. A guy, my biggest builder, we just wrapped up a 12,000 square foot, really nice home for him. And the guy called me 2 years ago and had never built a house in his life as a general contractor. His brother was a cabinet builder, and he was a dirt guy. And they got together and started building houses, and nobody took him serious. And I gave him a good price, and we took care of him and treated him like he was one of the best. And today he is one of the best builders in the area. Wow. And you just can't take anybody for granted. You never know what they're going to turn into and what they're going to make of you, and helping people on their way up, and helping people helping people that you need to help you.
Yeah.
Making sense.
Yeah. That's something I wish I'd learned 25 years ago was the importance of relationships. And the older I get, the more I begin to believe that's really what it's all about. It's about the relationships. This whole thing may be about the people and the relationships, and all of it may just be a means to an end to develop yourself and to develop people. That's speaking of the content in Florida at the Advance, you made that statement. What if we're a people developing company masquerading as a construction company? And man, it's just so much more rewarding. I mean, even today, after 20 years of doing this, I love, just flipping a switch and a light coming on. But even as valuable as that, as rewarding as that is, or seeing a project come, get finished, man, it's so rewarding to see your guys get developed and see relationships get better. And man, it's just that there's more reward in that than there is in the construction end of things. Yeah.
And it's
one thing I've heard you say, I think I've heard you say this at least once, maybe a couple of times, is that you used to think of yourself as an electrical contractor, but now you see yourself as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit. Some people are like, what's the difference?
Man, I had to move out of that, I guess, because I just don't. It's really hard for me to maintain. I respect managers. Anybody that can come in and manage and keep things rolling and keeping things steady. But I'm just always, even as an electrician, I'm always trying to find a way to rig the truck up to where it's more efficient, or trying to figure out a smoother way to do a job, or to be more productive, or to get the most out of everything. And so it's just, I always want to do things just a little bit better than what we did last time. And, I love the trade, and it's so much fun, and it really is rewarding. And so it's been really difficult. I mean, I still put my tool bag on, even with 10 or 12 guys. I still do it from time to time, because I find a lot of value in that. But learning to get out of being an electrician and and running a business and being an entrepreneur and looking at instead of just looking at how fast can I wire a house or how well can I do, how well can we figure out this commercial project and make a bunch of money on it. Man, it's turned into what, widgets. I mean, just more widgets that we're producing. And so, rather than working on the business and making that transition, and that's where I'm at in business, trying to make that. I mean, I bounce back and forth from being an electrical contractor to an entrepreneur, but I can actually see myself more as owning a business than even being an electrician. And so that's probably the hardest thing. I've heard guys, they make it work, as an electrician running their own, having a couple of guys working for them and everything. But, man, I just can't hardly, it's difficult because every time I turn around, there's opportunities that I'm like, man, I'm actually a pretty good boss, and I pay really well, and I take care of my guys, and I treat them like they're people, and they're not tools, and they're they've got a family that they love and they want to take care of, and they have purpose and they have a reason for doing what they do, and I get an opportunity to be a part of that, and so if I'm just an electrician running 2 or 3 guys, that's all I can help is 2 or 3 guys. But if I turn into an entrepreneur, man, I can, like you've said a couple of times, man, you're doing an injustice to people by not. If you're a good person, if you're trying to make something, man, you're doing an injustice to everybody around you by not growing your business, by not making something. And so if I can develop leaders and develop electricians to turn into leaders, man, I can make a much bigger difference running 5, 6, 7 crews than I can running 2 or 3 guys. So yeah, it's going to take me being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So what you just said there, that's a little bit unconventional. And I realize when I ask people that question about what's something you believe to be true that's unconventional, it's sort of like asking a fish to describe the water they're swimming in.
Right.
Like what you just said, like, hey, if I grow my business, I can support more people and I can help more people have a better life. That's gonna strike some people a little funny, because it's like there are a lot of people who believe, wait a minute, when I hire employees, they're there to support me and to support my vision and my business and my growth. And this Thomas guy is talking about kind of the inverse of that. So what would you say to somebody who's like, hold on, I hire people so they can work for me, so they can support me? What would you say to them?
Yeah. I mean, help me, help you, help me. I mean, it's kind of what's happening. I've just had so much more success when you want the best for your people, they want the best for you. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, my guys will kill themselves. I mean, I have to call them and tell them, I'll check my T-sheets and just to make sure everybody remember to clock out. And I'll call them, hey, why didn't you clock out? Oh, we're still on this job. We're trying to get it wrapped up, keep the schedule on track. I'm like, go home, for the love of Pete, go home, guys. You've got families, quit. Your wives are going to hate me. And, and so those guys, they really will, man, when they know you care about them, they'll care about what matters to you. If you care about what matters to them, man, I support their little T-ball teams and little league teams and their kid, any of their kids that are selling anything. I mean, man, it's important to them. And so if it's important to them, then it's important to me, and they'll throw themselves on a sword for me because of it. And we've had to change that culture a lot. Man, I got angry and bitter and through all those tough times. But it was, I had to, because I thought I had to, because I had to separate. I had friends and I couldn't deal with things. And so I thought I had to separate relationship from business, and it was two different things. And so I tried to separate, and I had to get angry and had to turn into a real jerk, because that was the only way I knew how to deal with it at the time. And since then I've learned a lot about myself, that I've learned, just little things about myself, and used what I've always thought is weaknesses to kind of be strengths.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. So talk about your approach. There's something we talked about in the last couple of weeks. There was a client, a builder, who owed you quite a bit of money. They were behind schedule. Well, they were behind, and you'd finished the work, and frankly, I was a little concerned. Like I may have even used the words like credit risk with these guys. And what was your approach to solving that situation? Because this is unconventional.
I don't even know why I did it. I probably read it somewhere and it's stuck in my subconscious. But man, I just this particular builder, he's real into working out and everything. And so I just, I wish I was, but I'm not. I wish I was, but I'm nowhere near what I wish what I should be. But I thought, you know what, I'm just going to call him and just be friends with him. I don't know why. I was getting real angry with him and frustrated with him, and he wouldn't answer my phone calls. He wouldn't answer my texts because he owed me a bunch of money. And finally, he needed to get a hold of me for a job or something. And I just got to talking to him about working out, because that was something he was passionate about. And it was something he got excited. And he went to, man, if you talk to anybody that's on a diet or workout program, they'll talk about it forever. So, that's kind of what I was doing, is just letting him talk and listen to him and asking him a bunch of questions. I was halfway interested in it. And so by the time we were finished with the conversation, just a simple, like, being interested in what he's doing, he's like, oh, hey, by the way, I've got a couple checks for you. Come by my house Friday. I'll get them to you. And I never even asked for the check. I never asked for money. Not a thing. It was just a result of just talking to him about something that had nothing to do with work, had nothing to do with business. And man, I've just started doing it a whole lot more with everybody, just sitting and talking. And I've got to be careful, because I can talk too much. But at the same time, man, you get to listening to some people's story. Man, there's so much wisdom out there from people that you'd never expect. And so, yeah, it worked with him that time. So, who knows if it works every time, but hey, try it.
Yeah. That's completely the Dale Carnegie how to win friends and influence people strategy. That's what he would suggest. If you want somebody to do something, then go talk to them, be nice, be friendly, be really interested in them. And then they're going to be much more likely to be interested in you. That is really counterintuitive, but it works. Yeah. Interesting collection strategy, but
yeah,
you got checks and you didn't have to ask for it. So
yeah,
can't knock that. So we talked about the advance a little bit. We're recording this in first week of October. The next advance is coming up in October 17th and 18th of 2019. If I'm still breathing, we're going to have these things regularly. If somebody's thinking about the advance, what is, I'm not sure how to ask this question. What is something that surprised you about the advance?
I knew the content would be great. You present. You put it together really well. So I wasn't surprised by the content, but I was surprised at the relationships. And it's super easy to walk into a room full of other contractors and start to not in a bad way necessarily, but you start judging watching people and you start thinking, the success that they've probably had or who's coming to this event. And it really surprised me at how much, it's just a complete, people from all over the place. A lot of people obviously from Florida and from a couple different people from Canada and Michigan and all over the place. And everybody's kind of got the same story. Everybody's got the same problem. Everybody's got the same struggle. And no matter how big or how small you are, you're still kind of struggling with the same stuff. Whether it's growth or whether it's when to hire somebody or when to fire somebody or what jobs to take on or how to make a good profit or how to figure out why you're even in business. And so it surprised me at how many people I was really able to relate to there, and how many people were kind of dealing with the same stuff I was. That it really did surprise me.
Yeah, I was. Of course, I get to talk to a lot of different people from different disciplines and different parts of the country, and there's an assumption that, well, like I'm a custom home builder, and my problems are specific to custom home builders, and they're concrete contractors and commercial contractors, and people assume that their problems are special, and they're not really. There's a lot of consistency, some very common trends, themes, little threads that run through all these different problems. It doesn't matter what part of the country or part of the world or what kind of work you do or how big you are. It's pretty similar. Now, one thing that surprised me and continues to surprise me when I get around a bunch of like-minded construction business owners is how transparent they are and how generous they are with, like, hey, here's what I think. Here's what I'm dealing with. Here's what I think you should do. It's amazing how helpful people are. And I think it feels good to help people. I think it feels good to help. And then once somebody helps you, you want to go help somebody else. And it just kind of kicks off this whole cycle of generosity. So it's good stuff. And we've got a couple of special speakers at the Advance coming up in Lexington, one of whom is yourself. You're going to be sharing some of your story. So I'm looking forward to what you're going to share there. So
you're not nervous about that at all?
Maybe just a little bit.
Okay, good.
Maybe just a little bit. The onion that is Thomas Andrews will be peeled back another layer. I'm not even surprised anymore. I'm like, well, I know there's a lot more in there. Yeah. And we're just scratching the surface. So yeah, it'll we'll have to make sure that the local places can make a duck fart and cranberries and vodka and all that kind of stuff. So you've got, this is sort of off the cuff here, but you've got an audience of somewhere between thousands and millions of listeners, probably closer to thousands, let's be honest, of construction business owners. What's something that you can say to them that they really need to hear? Maybe it's something you wish you would have heard back in your tough times, or maybe it's a message that is not being talked about enough, or something you're really passionate about. But what do construction business owners what do they need to hear from you?
So without getting, I guess, too awfully deep, man, I can't do my job well without knowing who I am and why I'm doing it. And when looking back, I really wasn't going through as much looking back. It doesn't feel like it. I would, if I was going through that stuff today, it'd be a little bit different in the fact that I know why I'm doing it. And back then I had no idea why I was in business. I had no idea why I was running a business. I don't know why. I didn't know why I was going after commercial work. I didn't. It was just all I knew is I needed to work, and so I went after jobs and then tried to find people to get them. And so I visited with a really, really wise advisor of mine at the time, and he's like, "Man, you got to know why you're doing it, and stop trying to get jobs and find people. Find the right people, then find the job. The right people will make you money, and the right people will will help you out. The right people will get you where you want to go. But what happens is we chase after jobs, and then we try to fill them with people, and that never works. Or we just want to be a certain size, and so we just go hire people, whatever we can find. And when you know your why, then the how gets pretty. It just kind of comes along with the territory, and that, I don't know if I made that real clear. I didn't really. I hadn't really thought much about it, specifically, but finding what it is that there's a book I read, Essentialism. I think you've actually got it on your list, but I'd read it a couple of years ago, and actually my bankers actually asked me the last few years. This was before, I jumped on board with you. I still hated everything, but I had, found something. I started to edit my life, and my income went way down, but my profit margins had gone up considerably. And it was because I really worked on finding my niche, finding out what my guys were good at, and going after that work. And now I have two guys. Well, I have one guy that is still with me, and that's my father-in-law, that's still with me from 2011. And I have two guys that are still with me from the time that I started with you. I have two out of at that time I had 7, 8 guys. 2 of them are still with me. And we just changed the culture. And we found out what we were, I got the right people on the bus, so to speak, and found out what, that's the reason why I say custom stuff. We like relationships, and all of my guys like relationships, and we get to know homeowners. We get to know what they want, and we don't wire a house because, this is how we always do it. We'll never tell a homeowner that this is your home. This is, we're trying to help you build your dream home. And, most people will never get an opportunity to build some of the houses that we build. It's their dream home. It's not a spec house. It's not, not to turn around and make money off of. And so, this may be, I don't know if that's probably, a lot of stuff, not one thing, but know your why, and then what is it that you're doing? What is it that you're good at? And just chase it, just run after it.
I like it. I want to go back and ask you to expand on something you said early on. You said something like, when you're committed, the resources show up.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
So, when you're kind of in there, when you're sold out, there's no, when you quit, I did anyway. I tried for so long. I tried to be a husband. I tried to be a contractor. I tried, and it just wasn't just, and it makes it easy when you say, I'm going to try. It makes it easy to have outs. And you kind of set yourself up. And I did it. I was like, I'm going to try for 90 days. And if things don't turn around, then I'm going to do something else. I was looking at putting my application in and going back to college and trying to, I love history. I thought about being a history teacher, for crying out loud. How silly would that be? But so, I mean, just all kinds of different things. And because I was just trying. And really, when I committed, when I was like, you know what, I'm going to invest in my business. I'm going to invest in, hiring somebody to see my blind spots. I started to, when I committed to it, then all of a sudden my guys are starting to change. And all of a sudden, I'm picking up contracts that I never knew that I didn't even know they were out there. I didn't even know those builders were there. And all of a sudden, vendors are chasing me down and trying to get me to buy from them and giving me these great deals to buy from them. And all of a sudden, just doors start to kind of open because, I'm in it. No matter what, I'm in it. And it just seems like when you're trying, it just doesn't ever happen.
Yeah, that's also pretty counterintuitive. That is not. It goes against the grain of what some people think. They're like, well, I'll try it if I'll persevere if things work out. And what you're talking about is saying, I'm deciding that it will work out. I'm going to make it work. Yeah. I'm not going to strike when the iron's hot. I'm going to strike until the iron gets hot. And I'm in it to win it, burning the ships, and we're going to make it work. And that was really revolutionary in my life a few years ago, because until then I was kind of like you were, like, maybe I'll do this. I had options, and it seems prudent. It seems wise to leave yourself some options, but it's not good for you. It's better to just have one option and decide, this is what I'm going to do. Really decide. Just decide. This is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And
make a stinking decision and change. You can change your mind later, for crying out loud, but but make a decision today.
Right. Get off the damn fence. Get off on one side or the other, and you can climb back off, but stop. If you're thinking about starting a business, get started. Stop talking about it, thinking about it. Just get moving and decide that you're going to be successful. If you're waiting for conditions to be right, then you're going to be waiting a long time. Or I actually had a guy tell me, like, well, I'm going to wait and see how this plays out. I'm like, well, I can tell you exactly what's going to happen. If you have a wait and see approach, you're going to do a lot of waiting and not a lot of seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just decide, get moving, and resources will come to you. I think that's a great spot to land this thing on. So good stuff, Thomas. I appreciate it. So if people want to connect with you, where should they go? Are you on social media? You have a website? Are you like incognito? Would you rather just remain an enigma from Oklahoma? How do you want to do that?
No, I mean, you can email me, Thomas at kernelectricok.com. And I'd be glad we can connect any way possible. I spent 2 hours on the phone. You need to help me out. I spent 2 hours on the phone with one of your people the other day. It was so much fun. I have so much fun when these guys call and ask for a reference on you, because I get to find out what's going on. I find out what's going on, and I don't know if I plug you at all. I just find out what's going on in their lives. And this guy, I was really excited about his business and everything. So, man, yeah, I'd love to hear from anybody. Shoot me an email, and we'll connect some way, somehow.
Sounds good. Well, I'll put some links in the show.
I'm on social media, but I pay some company to handle all of it. So I'm not a social media guy.
Gotcha. Good stuff.
It's important for business, but
right. It's all outbound. So, Thomas Andrews from Oklahoma. Thanks, man. And I look forward to seeing you in Lexington here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Can't wait. It's going to be fun.
There you go. Hope you enjoyed that interview with my good friend and client, Thomas Andrews. Be sure to go check out the Construction Business Accelerator Advance, the live event for construction business owners, October 17th and 18th, 2019, Lexington, Kentucky. Go to constructionbusinessaccelerator.com/advance. to get all the details and grab your seat if they're still available. But be sure to do it before October 13th. That's when doors will close. All right. And if you're driving or working out or whatever and you can't look that up, but you can send a text, then if you want some more details, if you want those links, or if you have questions, you want to talk to me about the advance, send me a text, 859-667-2015, and I will answer your questions because I want to see you there. This is the best thing I can do for you. As always, I appreciate the ratings and the reviews, and I appreciate it when you share this podcast with other folks. So if you get value out of this podcast, if you could take 60 seconds, open up your podcast player. If you're on Apple Podcast, it's pretty easy to leave a rating and a review. If you could leave a 5-star rating, leave a review, that helps get the word out there. I'm on a mission to get these 130 plus episodes out there to as many people as possible so they can learn and get the wisdom and all of the best practices and the inspiration and the hope that all of these great guests have shared on the podcast. So, as always, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate the emails, but if you could leave a rating and a review and share this with some folks, I would appreciate it. Until next time, I'm Todd DeWalt. Thanks for listening.